My name is Gabriel. I'm 28 years old, and I never imagined that accepting a temporary job on a farm could completely change my perception about desire, about boundaries, and especially about myself. I've always been a practical guy. I grew up in the city, working with accounting, numbers, spreadsheets. When my cousin called saying he needed someone for 3 months on his farm while recovering from knee surgery, I figured, why not? Fresh air, hard work, a change of pace from the office grind. What I didn't expect was meeting Diego. Diego had been the farm foreman for 5 years, 32 years old, body shaped by hard work, calloused hands that knew every corner of that property. On the first day, when he extended his hand to greet me, I felt the rough warmth of his palm against mine. Our eyes met for a few seconds. He looked me up and down quickly and nodded before saying only, "Welcome. We wake up at 5 here." It wasn't love at first sight. It was something more primal, more unsettling. It was recognition. The first weeks were pure adaptation. My body complained about every muscle I didn't even know existed. Waking up before sunrise, feeding the animals, fixing fences, carrying hay. Diego worked beside me, always close, always watching. He didn't talk much, but when he did, every word carried weight. "No, that way you'll hurt yourself." He approached from behind when I was trying to lift a barbed wire fence the wrong way. His hands covered mine, adjusting the position, his body almost touching my back. "Feel the tension here? That's where you need to hold tight." I felt it. I felt the tension in the wire. I felt the heat of his body so close. I felt my heart race in a way that had nothing to do with physical effort. "Thanks," I murmured, but he had already moved away, grabbing another tool as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. And it kept happening, day after day, in small moments that accumulated like embers. The farm had its own rhythm. Mornings started in the barn, where the smell of hay and livestock blended with something I came to appreciate, the honest smell of real work. Diego always got there first, 2 cups of black coffee already waiting. "Here, gonna be a long one today?" He handed me a mug, our fingers brushing against the hot ceramic. Same ritual every morning. That half-second of contact we both needed, even if we wouldn't admit it. And I noticed things. I noticed how he always chose to work beside me, even when it would be more efficient to split up. I noticed how his eyes followed me when I took off my shirt in the midday heat, sweat running down my back. I noticed how he found excuses to touch me, to adjust my posture, to teach me something with his hands. "You learn fast," he said one afternoon while we were fixing the barn roof. We were side by side, so close our shoulders touched with every movement. "You don't seem like a city guy. And you seem like you were born here," I replied, trying to keep the tone light, but my voice came out huskier than I wanted. He laughed low, a deep sound that reverberated in my chest. "I was born in a city bigger than yours, but I found myself here. Sometimes we need silence to hear who we really are." That stuck with me. Who was I really? I'd thought I knew. A few girlfriends over the years, nothing serious. But they were all women. Always the expected path. Always what everyone did. But there on that roof, sun going down and painting everything gold, with Diego close enough that I could smell the earth and salt of his skin, I started questioning everything. "Why are you looking at me like that?" His question caught me off guard. "Like what?" "The way you look at me. Like you're trying to figure something out." My heart raced. "You look at me too." Silence. A heavy silence, loaded with everything we weren't saying. He looked away first, returning to work. But I saw the slight tremor in his hand as he grabbed the hammer. That night, lying in the guest room of the main house, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept going back to that moment, to the tension in the air, to the unanswered question hanging between us. I wasn't naive. I knew what was happening. But admitting it meant entering unknown territory, meant questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. The following days were a careful dance, both of us avoiding and seeking closeness at the same time. It was contradictory. It was frustrating. It was intense in a way I had never experienced. There was an afternoon when we finished mending a fence at the far end of the property, noon sun beating down like a hammer. We headed for the shade of a big oak tree. Diego leaned against the trunk, breathing hard, and grabbed the water bottle from his pack. He drank long and deep, water running down the side of his neck, disappearing under his collar. When he was done, he held it out to me. It probably wasn't the smartest call, hygiene-wise. We could have brought 2. But I took it, put my mouth exactly where his had been, and drank. Such a small thing. But it felt huge, felt intimate in a way that had nothing to do with the physical. Gabriel. My name and his voice sounded different. Can I ask you something? Sure. Have you ever questioned? About yourself? About what you feel? The honesty in the question disarmed me. There was no judgment, just genuine curiosity, and something more. Something that felt like hope. I'm questioning now, I admitted, the words coming out before I could censor them, especially after meeting you. I saw something shift in his face. His eyes darkened, his jaw tightened. He took a step toward me, reducing the space between us to almost nothing. This is dangerous, Gabriel. Here, in this place, with the people we know. He shook his head. This is forbidden. Forbidden, I repeated, the word weighing heavy on my tongue. And what do you feel? I feel like I should keep my distance. He raised his hand, hesitated, then touched my shoulder. Just a touch, but it was like an electric current. But I can't. We stood there like that, beneath that tree, the world reduced to just the two of us and that impossible moment. I wanted to move forward, wanted to close the distance, but something held me back. Fear, uncertainty, the weight of what that choice would mean. Diego. I know. He stepped back, his hand falling from my shoulder and leaving a cold emptiness in its place. Let's go back. There's work waiting. But neither of us moved immediately. We stood there, looking at each other, and in that look there was a silent promise. This wasn't over. We were just beginning. The following days were a delicious torture. Every interaction carried double meaning. Every accidental touch seemed purposeful. When our hands met passing a tool, when our bodies drew close working in a tight space, when our eyes met and lingered seconds too long. Do you have a girlfriend? Diego asked one morning as we fed the horses. No, I've had a few, but nothing serious in a while. And you? He threw the hay with extra force. I did. One. A long time ago. What happened? I discovered I was trying to be something I wasn't, to please others. My father, mainly. He stopped, staring at me. He never knew. No one here knows, and it has to stay that way. I understood then. Diego wasn't just hesitant because of me. He was protecting himself, protecting the life he'd built here. In a small, rural, conservative community, being different was more than stigma. It was isolation. I won't tell anyone anything, I assured him. I know, that's not it. He moved closer, lowering his voice even though no one was around. It's that the closer you get, the harder it is to keep the secret. The harder it is to pretend I don't want. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I knew exactly what he was going to say because I felt the same thing. That afternoon, we worked in the main barn, organizing equipment. It was an enclosed space, dusty, with rays of light streaming through cracks in the wood. Diego was on the other side, lifting a heavy saddle, and I went to help. Our hands grabbed the leather at the same time, and instead of letting go, we stayed there, holding it together, so close I could see every detail of his face. Dust danced in the air, sweat dripped from my forehead. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. Gabriel, he whispered, my name coming out like a confession. I don't know what to do with what I'm feeling. I don't know either, I admitted. But I know that when I'm near you, everything else disappears. And that scares me and draws me in at the same time. He closed his eyes like he was wrestling with something. When he opened them again, they were different. Determined. Meet me tonight. After everyone's in bed. The barn. It wasn't a question. It was a crossing point. Once we went there, nothing would be the same. What if someone sees? No one will see. I know every movement on this farm. He let go of the saddle but didn't step away. Only come if you're sure. Because after this, there's no going back. How do you know? A sad smile crossed his face. 5 years of pretending. 5 years of keeping everything locked down. But with you. He shook his head. It's not the same. And I have to know if this is just me, or if you're feeling it too. I feel it. The words came out before I could think them. I don't know what it is exactly. I can't name it. But I feel it. He nodded slowly, then stepped away, returning to work as if that conversation hadn't happened. But it had. And the anticipation of what would come that night made every following minute charged with an almost unbearable tension. The rest of the day passed in slow motion. We had dinner with my cousin and his family, banal conversations about harvest and cattle market. Diego was calm, composed. Nothing in his behavior suggested the turmoil I knew was happening inside. I tried to imitate that calm, but every time our eyes met at the table, my stomach knotted. After dinner, I helped wash the dishes, played with my cousin's kids, watched half an hour of television. Routine, normalcy, but inside I was counting the minutes. 10 o'clock. My cousin yawned and said goodnight. 10:30. The lights in the house started going out. 11 o'clock. Complete silence. 11:15. I got up from bed, put on a t-shirt, and walked to the window. Outside, a faint light came from the barn. Diego was waiting. Every step felt like it echoed. My shoes on the dirt, the wind through the trees, my heart pounding so loud I was sure someone could hear it. The barn door was cracked open. When I pushed through, the hinges groaned. Diego was waiting against a stack of hay, lamp in hand, his face half in light and half in shadow. He didn't say anything when he saw me, just looked. And in that look was all of it: want, fear, hope, surrender. You came. I said I would. He set the lantern aside, the light casting long shadows on the wooden walls. You can still turn back. You can still pretend this isn't happening. I walked toward him, each step a choice, each breath a confirmation. I don't want to pretend. Then you understand that this... He gestured between us. This can't be public. This can't leave here. I understand. And you understand that I've never done this? Never let anyone truly get close? Why me? He took a step forward, closing the space between us. When you first showed up, soft hands and city ways, I figured keeping distance would be simple. But then you actually got to work, got dirty, pushed hard. I watched you mess up, try again, keep going. Saw the grit in you, and I started seeing other stuff. The way you laugh, how you talk to the animals, the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. My breathing was uneven. And what did you see when I looked at you? I saw someone as confused as I was, someone fighting against something they couldn't name. He raised his hand, hesitant, and touched my face. Rough fingers against my cheek, so gentle I almost didn't feel them. I saw someone who could understand me. I closed my eyes, allowing myself to feel that touch, that moment. Diego, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this means. Neither do I. He moved closer, his forehead almost touching mine. But for once in my life, I want to stop thinking. I just want to feel. What if we don't know what to do? He laughed softly, a sound filled with nervousness and desire. Then we'll figure it out together. There in that barn, lit by one lantern, smelling of hay and leather, with the world outside not knowing what was happening inside, something broke open in me. Like a part I'd kept sealed up, shoved down, denied, finally got permission to breathe. Diego didn't kiss me then. He just held my face with both hands, looked at me like he was memorizing me, and whispered, "Tomorrow we wake up and pretend this didn't happen. But tonight is ours." And I understood that this was just the beginning of something forbidden, intense, dangerous, something that would change everything. As the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the barn floor, neither of us moved to leave. We stayed there, suspended in that impossible moment, knowing that everything that came after would be different, knowing that something between us had been irrevocably awakened. And the question that hung in the air, heavy and inevitable: what happens when the workday ends and we're still alone, without excuses, without barriers? Raphael's hand stayed close to mine when he said, in that rough voice I already knew from work, "I should get going. Let you rest." But his eyes were saying something else completely. They stayed locked on mine, looking for something I wasn't sure I could give. "Stay a little longer," I heard my own voice saying, before even processing the thought. The night is just beginning. It was the first time I consciously chose to remain in that space of intimacy opening between us. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't coincidence. It was a decision I felt in my chest before understanding it in my head. Raphael settled more comfortably on the hay bale, leaning his back against the wooden wall of the barn. I did the same, maintaining a distance that felt simultaneously safe and insufficient. The sound of crickets outside filled the initial silence, while we both tried to find the next step in this conversation that was no longer about work. "Did you always want to work with this?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward the fields outside. "With the farm, the cattle, all this routine?" The question caught me off guard. People usually assumed I was born for this, that it was something natural. No one questioned it. "No," I answered honestly. "Actually, I came here running from something else." Raphael turned his face toward me, interested. Running from what? I took a deep breath. It wasn't easy to talk about this, but there was something about that moment, that night, that made the words easier to release. From a place where I never felt right, where every move I made was judged, every choice questioned. I'm from a small town where everybody knows everybody. The kind of place where there's a script you're supposed to follow. Finish school, get a job, marry the right girl, have kids, keep it going. I paused, feeling the weight of my own words, but I could never fit into that script. I felt like I was wearing clothes the wrong size, tight in places that should be comfortable. So when the opportunity came to work here, on my uncle's farm, I grabbed it. Because here, in the middle of nowhere, I could be. I don't know. I could try to discover who I really am, without anyone telling me who I should be. Raphael stayed silent for a moment, processing. His eyes didn't leave mine during my entire speech, and there was something in them, recognition, perhaps, that made me realize he understood more than I imagined. I know exactly what that's like, he finally said, his voice lower now, almost confessional. That feeling of not fitting in the places where you're supposedly meant to be. He rubbed his hands together, as if he needed courage to continue. I ended up here running too. Worked on different farms, always moving. People think it's because I like the freedom, not staying put. But really, he hesitated, and I saw his jaw clench. Really, I never found anywhere I could just be myself without having to explain or defend who I am. My heart raced. There was something unspoken in those words. A deeper layer I recognized because I carried the same one. And who are you, Raphael? I asked, surprised by my own courage. He gave a small smile, somewhat sad. I'm still trying to figure it out. Or rather, trying to accept what I already know, but I'm afraid to admit out loud. The air between us grew heavier. Each second of silence carried the weight of unspoken confessions, of truths hovering in the narrow space separating us. Have you ever questioned who you really are? He asked, turning his body a bit more toward me. About the places you avoid looking inside yourself? The question hit me like something heavy dropping in still water. My breathing got tight. Because yeah, I'd questioned it. A lot. Late nights alone, between work and work. I questioned why I'd look at certain people longer than I should. Why the dreams left me confused when I woke up. Why when guys around me talked about women the way they did, I couldn't feel it the same way, no matter how hard I tried. Yes, I admitted, my voice coming out almost as a whisper. I question it. All the time, actually. Raphael moved a few inches closer. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't abrupt. It was a subtle movement, almost imperceptible. But it reduced the space between us in a way that made my heart race. And what do you discover when you allow yourself to really look? He asked. And there was an intensity in his voice that made me feel he wasn't just asking a casual question. He was offering himself. Somehow, as a witness to this process, I could have deflected. Could have changed the subject. Made a joke. Created a distraction. But I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I was facing someone who seemed to understand exactly where my thoughts wandered in the dark hours of dawn. I find out I'm scared, I said, plain and simple. Scared of what it means if I accept certain things about myself. Scared of how it changes everything. Scared that I won't be strong enough for what comes next. Raphael nodded slowly, as if each of my words resonated with something deep inside him. Strength isn't denying who you are, he said, and there was a conviction in his voice that surprised me. Strength is facing the truth head-on, even when it scares you. Even when it changes everything you thought you knew about yourself. Our eyes met again, and this time the contact didn't break. We remained like that, suspended in that moment, while the rest of the world seemed to disappear. I could hear my own breathing, could feel my racing pulse in my neck, could sense the heat emanating from his body so close to mine. I never fit right in the places I was supposed to belong, he continued, his voice getting quieter, more real. Never could pretend to be someone I'm not. And that kept me alone. For a really long time. He paused, his eyes still fixed on mine. Until I looked at you that first week of work, and something inside me recognized something in you. As if he searched for the right words. As if I had finally found someone who understands this loneliness, this not belonging. My chest tightened, because I felt exactly the same thing, but had never been able to put it into words. I felt it too, I confessed, my voice faltering a little. Since the first day, I tried to ignore it, tried to pretend it was just, I don't know, admiration for a coworker. But it's not just that, is it? Raphael let out a long sigh, as if he'd been holding this truth for a long time. No, it's not just that. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It wasn't uncomfortable, nor empty. It was loaded with mutual recognition of something being named for the first time. I realized we were even closer now. I don't know when it happened, if it was me who moved closer, or if it was him, or if we both moved simultaneously, as if pulled by an invisible force. Our shoulders almost touched. I could feel the warmth of his arm through the thin shirt he wore. "Do you feel this too?" Raphael asked, his voice so low it was almost a murmur. This connection. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. "I do," I replied, my own voice failing. "And it scares me." "Why?" "Because—" I stopped, trying to organize the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. "Because recognizing this means admitting things about myself that I'm still not sure I'm ready to face. It means completely changing the way I see myself. And if I open that door, there's no going back." Raphael turned fully toward me now, his whole body angled in a way that made it impossible not to see every part of his face in the dim moonlight coming through the barn cracks. His eyes had a depth I'd never seen before, desire, fear, hope all mixed together. "And what if not going back is exactly what you need?" he asked softly. My breath caught. We were so close now that I could feel his warm breath on my face. Every nerve ending in my body was on high alert, aware of every millimeter between us. "I don't know what I am yet," I admitted, and there was a vulnerability in those words that made me feel completely exposed. "I don't know how to name what I'm feeling. It makes me vulnerable," he completed. "I know, because I feel the same way." Our gazes locked, and in that moment I saw reflected in his eyes the same turmoil I felt inside me. Fear, desire, confusion, hope, all at once, creating an emotional storm that was simultaneously terrifying and liberating. "I shouldn't be thinking about you like this," he said, his voice rough with feeling. "Shouldn't wake up wanting to see you. Shouldn't feel my heart jump when you smile. But I do, and it's eating me alive." His words pierced through me, because they were exactly what I felt but hadn't had the courage to name. "Raphael," I began, but my voice failed. I didn't know what to say, how to express that I felt the same, that I woke up thinking about him, that my entire day revolved around the moments when our paths crossed. "Do you feel this too?" he asked again, and there was an urgency in his voice now, a need for confirmation that mirrored my own. "I do," I whispered, feeling as if I were jumping off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. "I feel all of it, and I don't know what to do with these feelings." The tension between us reached a peak. We were on the threshold of something, standing on the edge of a decision that would change everything. The air was charged with possibility, with unfulfilled desire, with words that still needed to be said. Raphael slowly raised his hand, as if asking permission, and lightly touched my face. His thumb grazed my cheekbone, a touch so gentle it could have been imagined, but the electricity that coursed through my body was absolutely real. "Is this allowed?" he murmured, his eyes searching mine. "What we're feeling?" I had no answer. I didn't know if it was allowed. I didn't know if it was right or wrong. I only knew it was real, and that denying it would be lying to myself in a way I could no longer sustain. "I don't know," I replied honestly, "but I can't stop." He smiled, a small, sad smile that carried both relief and pain. "Neither can I." We stayed like that, suspended in that moment of mutual recognition. His hand still on my face, our eyes locked, our hearts beating in sync. That invisible line between safety and risk had gotten paper thin, but neither of us crossed it. Not yet, because some part of us knew that once we crossed it, there would be no going back. And despite the desire, despite the connection, despite everything we had confessed that night, there was still enough fear to keep us standing on that edge. "I don't want to complicate things," Raphael said finally, lowering his hand with visible reluctance. "You work here. I work here. If we... He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. I understood. Reality was more complicated than our feelings. There were consequences to consider, judgments to face, a structure of life that could crumble if we weren't careful. "I know," I agreed, feeling a mix of relief and disappointment. "I know. But the weight of unspoken words still hung between us. The acknowledgement of what we felt for each other had been given, and there was no undoing it. There was no going back to working side by side pretending this night hadn't happened, that these confessions hadn't been made. "So what do we do?" I asked, genuinely lost. Raphael remained silent for a long moment, as if weighing all the possibilities. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "But I know I don't want to pretend this doesn't exist, that you don't move me in a way no one else ever has." His words hit me warm, spreading from my chest outward. "Me either," I replied. "I can't pretend anymore." Our eyes met once more, and there was an unspoken promise in that look. A promise that, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite all the complications that could arise, we weren't going to simply ignore what was growing between us. Raphael stood up slowly, and I did the same. We were standing now face to face in the silent barn, the outside world distant and irrelevant. "I really should go now," he said, but didn't move. "You should," I agreed, but also didn't step away. We stood there for a few more seconds, waiting to see who'd move first. Finally, Raphael reached out and took my hand. Simple handshake, but it held everything from that night. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow," I replied. He turned and walked to the barn door. I watched him go, my heart pounding, my head spinning. At the door, he stopped and turned back one last time. "Lucas." He called my name, and the way he said it made me feel something deep move inside me. "Thank you for being honest, for not running away." I had nothing to say. I just nodded, and he was gone into the dark. I stood alone in the barn, trying to catch my breath. That night had shifted everything. We hadn't kissed, hadn't crossed any physical line, but something bigger had happened. We'd really seen each other. No masks, no pretense. And being seen like that, seeing him like that, something in me had changed forever. I walked back to the house like I was in a dream, thoughts going in circles. What did it mean? Where did this go? What happened tomorrow when we saw each other in daylight? I lay in bed, but sleep didn't come easily. I kept feeling the touch of his hand on my face, kept hearing the sound of his voice confessing feelings that mirrored my own. I kept reliving every moment of that conversation, every word, every look, every silence heavy with meaning. And as I stared at the ceiling in the dark, a certainty grew inside me. No matter the fear, no matter the complications, no matter what the future held, something had begun that night, something I wasn't willing to let die. Morning came too fast, but the weight of unsaid things was heavier than any work. Morning felt different. There was no pretending it didn't happen. Coffee smell still hung in the kitchen, but different now. Thicker. Loaded with everything we weren't saying. I saw Lucas far out, fixing the north fence. He didn't look when I walked past. I didn't look either, but I felt it. Every meter of distance between us was like a cord pulled tight, vibrating with something that hurt in my chest. I tried to focus on work. Hay bales to move, tools to organize, hinges that needed fixing, simple stuff. Routine. But nothing felt simple. Every move felt too obvious, every breath too loud, every second stretched out weird. You ever try to avoid someone while they're avoiding you too? Strange game. We're on opposite sides of the property, but every time I look up, I think I catch him just looking away. And I think, is he feeling this? This restlessness that won't let you sit still? Around 10 in the morning, the avoidance became unsustainable. We had to move the hay bales from the old barn to the new one. It was a two-person job. There was no escaping it. I walked up to him in silence. Lucas was already in the barn, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, muscles tensed as he pushed the first bale. He saw me enter and stopped. For a second, we just stood there, dust dancing in the sunbeams streaming through the gaps in the boards. "I'm here to help," I said, voice rougher than I meant. He nodded. "Thanks." And we started. At first, we kept space between us. He'd push from one side, I'd pull from the other. Quiet, efficient, safe. But the barn was small, and the bales were heavy, and the gap between us kept getting smaller. On the fifth run, it happened. Heavy bale, both of us carrying it, one on each end. Our arms brushed. That's all. Skin for half a second, but it was electricity. He didn't pull back. Neither did I. We kept moving, but now I was conscious of everything about him. Sweat and earth smell. his breathing faster than it should be, the heat coming off him, close enough I could feel it without even touching. We set the bale down. We stood there, side by side, breathing hard. Neither of us moved to get the next one. "It's hot in here," he said, wiping his forehead with his arm. "Yeah," I replied. But it wasn't just the heat of the day. Lucas turned to me, and for the first time since last night, our eyes really met. And there was everything. Confusion, fear, and something stronger than both of them. Want. "About last night," he started. "You don't have to explain," I cut in, too fast, because I was scared. Scared of what he'd say. Scared he'd call it a mistake, that it shouldn't have happened, that we should forget it. "But I want to," he said, taking a step toward me. "I need to." My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Then talk." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, nervous move I knew by now. "I can't stop thinking about you. I've been trying all morning. Can't do it." The words just came out. Me either. The quiet that came was different. Not the weight of avoidance, charged with possibility, with choice. The understanding that we were in the same place, same feeling, same want. "What do we do with this?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I don't know," I admitted, "but avoiding it isn't working." He smiled, crooked smile that did me in. "No." And then, on purpose, meaning every bit of it, he closed the space. "Not an accident. Not work. Choice." His fingers brushed mine, asking without saying, "Okay?" I answered by locking my pinky with his. Just that. But it meant everything. Everything shifted that day. No more avoiding. We started finding reasons to be close. "Hand me that wrench?" he asked, reaching out. When I gave it to him, his fingers stayed on mine a beat too long. "Can you help with this gate?" I said later, even though I could do it alone. He came over. We stood closer than needed, shoulders brushing, breathing the same air. Each touch was a question. Each moment close was an answer. We were pushing limits, seeing how far without the final crossing. But that line was getting thinner every second. Mid-afternoon, fence work at the back. Lucas held the board. I swung the hammer. Stupid. I looked at him for a second and missed the nail, caught my thumb instead. "Damn!" I yelled, dropped the hammer, held my hand. He came right over. "Let me see." "It's fine," I said, but he was already holding it, checking it out. "That's gonna bruise," he said, his thumb brushing gentle right next to where I'd hit it. "Hurt bad?" I should have answered. Should have said I was okay, just a dumb injury, back to work. But I couldn't, because his hand was still on mine, because I could see the gold in his brown eyes up close, because the way he was looking at me had nothing to do with my thumb. "Lucas," I began, not knowing how to finish. He didn't answer, just moved closer, so slowly that there was time for me to pull away, to step back, to stop what was about to happen. But I didn't want to stop. Not anymore. Our faces inches apart, his breath on my skin, his lips parted slightly, my heart pounding, every part of me alert. He tilted his head. I closed my eyes. Then the sound. Truck coming up the dirt road. Loud. Close. Heading straight for us. We jumped apart so fast it almost looked funny. Lucas went back to the fence, picked up the hammer like he'd just set it down. I started sorting nails, hands shaking. Truck stopped nearby. Feed supplier, same guy as always, 60s, no warning when he shows up. "Afternoon, guys," he yelled, waving. "Got your delivery." Lucas waved back. I tried to smile, but my face was stiff. We helped unload the bags, small talk, pretending everything was fine. But nothing was fine. I could still feel Lucas being that close. The almost kiss heat. The burn of the interruption. The supplier finally left, taking with him the dust cloud and the forced distraction. We stood there in the middle of the yard, looking anywhere except at each other. Lucas broke the silence. "I gotta finish that fence before sunset." "I'll help," I said, automatic. "No," he said fast, too fast. I think I should do it alone. Faster that way." He was backing away, into avoidance, and I hated it. Hated this fear we were both choosing. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. Lucas looked like he wanted to say something. Didn't. Just grabbed the tools and left. I spent the rest of the afternoon solo, trying not to think, trying not to feel, trying not to live that moment again, right before the truck, when everything felt possible. Couldn't though. Sun was going down when Lucas came back. Came into the barn where I was organizing tools, covered in dust and sweat. We just stood there quiet, air between us thick enough to feel. "The old barn door needs fixing," he said suddenly, not looking at me. "Hinge broke, won't make it till tomorrow." I looked out, almost dark. "Now?" "Yeah," he said, and finally looked at me. "You could help. Faster with both of us." Not about the door. We both knew it. About choosing. Choosing to be close instead of apart. Choosing to face it instead of run. Choosing risk over safe. "Okay," I said, low voice. "I'll grab the light." We walked to the old barn in silence, last light disappearing. Barn way back there, hidden by trees. Nobody goes unless they have to. Isolated. Private. Right for what needed saying. Or doing. Lucas opened the door, creaked loud in the quiet. We went in. He turned on the light weak glow, barely lit. Old hay smell. Wood. Earth. He closed the door, and we were alone. Really alone. No chance of interruption. No escape. Just us and the choice we made by being here. Lucas put the light on the ground. Long shadows on the walls. He turned, and everything I felt was in his eyes. Fear, want, doubt, need. "We're not fixing any door, right?" I said. He shook his head slow. "No." "So why are we here?" Lucas stepped closer. Again, until we were like before. Too close for innocent. Close enough to be sure. "Because I'm done pretending," he said, voice rough. "Done avoiding. Done telling myself this'll go away. It won't, and I don't want it to. My heart hurt from beating so hard. What if it changes everything?" "It already did," he said. "Changed the first time I looked at you and felt something new. Changed when you looked back the same way. Changed last night. Changed today. Almost kiss. Everything's different." "What do you want?" I asked, needing to know. Lucas raised his hand slow, time to back away if I wanted. His fingers on my face, gentle enough I closed my eyes. "I want to stop running," he whispered. "Stop being scared of what I feel. I want you." I opened my eyes. Same. And there, in that old, dark barn, with only the dim light of a lantern, we finally stopped fighting the inevitable. As darkness settled completely over the farm, the barn door closed behind us. This time, locked from the inside. There would be no more interruptions. No more retreating. Just the two of us and the choice we finally had the courage to make. The barn door closed behind them, heavy and final. The world outside rules, judgment, expectations, all stayed on the other side of that thick wood. In here, dry hay smell, dusty air through the cracks, two men breathing who were finally alone. "We're alone," the rancher said, voice lower than normal, testing the weight of it. The quiet after was thick and heavy, not like the awkward silence from before, the one they'd filled with work and talk. This was different, charged with anticipation, full of months of unsaid things. The young ranch hand leaned against hay, arms crossed, but nobody believed it, not relaxed. Every part of him tense, waiting. Dark eyes in the dim light locked on the rancher. "You locked the door," he said. Not a question, a fact, an acknowledgement of what it meant. The rancher stood there a moment, hand on the latch. He could hear it, the voice of reason that had always guided him, that built everything he had. Screaming now, telling him to open up, keep distance, save what was left of normal. But there was another voice, older, real. The voice he'd buried for decades under responsibility and reputation and fitting in, and it was done waiting. He turned slow, away from the door. Each step toward the ranch hand broke something, not bad, but liberating, like undoing invisible chains he'd carried his whole life. "Yeah," he finally said, rough voice. "I locked it." They stood like that, just a few meters apart, but the distance felt huge. Air between them vibrating with what needed saying. He could see the pulse in the young man's neck, fast. Could see his chest rise and fall with careful breaths. Then words started coming out. Not planned, just true. "This..." He started, then stopped. Voice failed. Swallowed hard, pushed through. "What I feel for you." The ranch hand didn't move, but his face changed. Eyes wider, lips parted, waiting. "I tried to ignore it," the rancher said, and words came easier now, like they'd been waiting to get out. Tried to tell myself it was just respect for your work. Just because you're good at what you do. Just because good workers are hard to find out here. He stepped closer. But it's not any of that. Never was. The quiet after lasted just seconds but felt longer. Then the ranch hand moved, stepped away from the hay, uncrossed his arms, and when he spoke, his voice was full of controlled emotion. "I know," he said simple. "I feel it too." 3 words. Just 3 words, but they changed everything. The rancher felt something break inside him, not painfully, but like when a dam finally gives way under accumulated pressure. Years of denial, of loneliness disguised as self-sufficiency, of nights awake questioning who he really was beneath all the masks he had learned to wear. "You feel it?" he said back, and hated how fragile he sounded, vulnerable, almost desperate. "Since day one," the ranch hand said, stepping closer now, closing the gap. "When you hired me, showed me around, talked about this place like it was part of you. I felt it." Another step. "I saw how you looked at me when you thought I wasn't looking. Saw how you made excuses to work close. Same field. Check if I was doing things right even though you knew I was. One more, and now less than a meter between them. And I—" The young man hesitated, and for the first time the rancher saw real doubt in his eyes. "I've never felt like this. Not ever. Not this strong." He could feel the heat off the other man's body now, could see the sweat on his forehead, the dim light in his dark eyes, could feel his own heart pounding so hard the whole barn must be hearing it. And then he said what he'd been holding back, the most dangerous truth of all. "This is forbidden," the farmer whispered. The ranch hand didn't step back, didn't look away, just waited. A moment. Everything suspended. Could still take it back. Safety still possible. Familiar life still there. Then the farmer said the rest. "But I don't care anymore." Words came out like a sigh, like decades of holding back finally released. The moment it was said, the moment that impossible truth was in the air between them, everything shifted. One of them moved. Or maybe both. After, neither could say who closed it first. Just that they went from separate to together. The farmer's hands rough, calloused from decades of work on the young man's face. Could feel stubble, warm skin, sweat. His thumbs on the ranch hand's cheekbones felt him shake under his touch. Not cold. Emotion. Then their lips met. First kiss was everything hesitant and desperate, gentle and intense. Asking and saying yes all at once. The farmer tasted salt and sweat, felt hot breath mixing with his own. Felt the young man lean closer like eliminating even the air between them. The ranch hand's hands came up, gripped the farmer's shirt, pulled him closer. Kiss got deeper, less careful, more urgent. Years of being alone, of denying, of wanting but never letting yourself, all of it went into that moment. When they pulled back enough to breathe, both were shaking. 2 strong men, used to hard physical work, brought down to trembling by simple touch. By finally being honest. The farmer started, then stopped. No words for this. The ranch hand knew. Always knew. His arms wrapped around him. Full embrace. And for the first time in years, the farmer let himself be held. Really held. Not a pat on the back after good work. Not a business handshake. But real embrace. 2 bodies fitting perfect. His heart against the other's. Face buried in the young man's neck. Just feeling. They stayed like that, seconds, minutes, hours. Time didn't matter in this space they'd made. "I never," the ranch hand said into the farmer's shoulder, voice muffled. "I've never felt safe like this." The farmer tightened the hold, felt something wet at his eyes. Tears. When was the last time? When did he last let himself feel like this? "Me either," he admitted, voice thick, strangled with feeling. "Never like this. Never for real." They pulled back to look at each other. Ranch hand's face close enough to count every eyelash, see every shade in his dark eyes, notice the small scar on his left eyebrow he'd never asked about. "I don't know what this means," the young man said, honest. "Don't know how it works. Don't know what to do with it." "Me either," the farmer replied. And then, for the first time in a long time, he smiled. Not the polite smile for neighbors, not the business smile for buyers, but real, loaded with relief and joy and fear and hope. But I know I'm done pretending. Can't do it anymore. The ranch hand smiled back, like watching the sun come up after a night that lasted years. Then we don't, he said simple. They kissed again. No hesitation this time. Pure need connection, honesty, finally letting themselves be who they were. The farmer's hands moved, shoulders, down the strong spine, feeling muscles contract. The ranch hand did the same, fingers through the farmer's gray hair, neck, jawline. Words between kisses. Confessions. Truths never said out loud. I think about you nights, the ranch hand said, voice rough and low. Alone in the bunkhouse, I think about you. Me too, the farmer said, kissing his neck, feeling the fast pulse under his lips. In the house, looking out at your room, wondering if you're thinking about me. Always, the young man said, every time. They moved together, no real planning, just lying in the hay. Uncomfortable straw through clothes, hard ground, but neither cared. Too absorbed in each other, in the impossible miracle of finally being together like this. The farmer looked down at the man beneath him, chest tight with feeling so intense it hurt. The ranch hand was beautiful hair messed up, lips swollen from kisses, dark eyes shining with want, and something deeper, real. You're beautiful, he said, voice vulnerable, amazed, no pretense. The ranch hand raised his hand, touched the farmer's face, tender in a way that contrasted with the strength he showed at work. So are you, he replied. Since day one, I thought you were beautiful. The way you move, how you talk about this land, how you care about everything. I've never met anyone like you. Now? The farmer asked, needed to know. What now? Now, the ranch hand said, pulling him down. I think I'm the luckiest guy alive. They kissed until lips hurt, until the light inside shifted as the sun moved, until the world outside seemed not just far, but gone. Eventually, they just lay there. Farmer on his side, ranch hand against his chest, arms around each other, legs tangled. Breathing slowed, synchronized. The farmer felt the weight of the other against him, felt his chest rise and fall, felt the warmth between them. I've never done this, the ranch hand said quiet. I know, the farmer replied, running his fingers through the young man's hair in a gentle, repetitive gesture. Me neither. Not really. Not being honest about who I am. It's scary, the ranch hand admitted. It is, the farmer agreed. Terrifying. But it's good too. It's better than good, it's... He paused, searching for the right word. It's real. They stayed silent for a while longer, just existing together, savoring the newness and the impossibility and the absolute rightness of it. But eventually, inevitably, reality began to seep back in. The ranch hand was the first to voice it. What do we do when the sun comes up? He asked, his voice small, almost apprehensive. And that was the question, wasn't it? What did they do when the door opened again? When they returned to the world where this, what they had just discovered, what they had just admitted wasn't acceptable? Where men like them weren't allowed to have this? The farmer had no answer. Not yet. But he had something else. He had certainty. He had resolve. I don't know, he said honestly, tightening his embrace around the ranch hand. I don't know what we do with all of this. I don't know how it works. I don't know if we can have this here, in this town, in this life. He paused, gathering courage for the next part. But I know I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I'm not going to pretend I don't feel what I feel. I've wasted too much time doing that already. I've wasted a whole lifetime. The ranch hand turned in his arms, so they were face to face, nose to nose. I'm not going to pretend either, he promised. No matter what happens, no matter what this means for me, for my job, for anything, I'm not going to pretend. It might be hard, the farmer warned. It might be harder than anything we've ever faced. I don't care, the ranch hand said, and kissed him softly, quickly. You're worth it, This is worth it. The farmer felt his eyes burn again, felt emotion rising in his throat. When was the last time anyone had said he was worth it? When was the last time anyone had chosen to stay, knowing full well what that choice meant? You too, he managed to say. You're worth everything too. They remained like that, embraced in the hay, while the light continued to change, while the day progressed outside. They knew that eventually they would have to get up. They would have to open the door. They would have to return to their lives, to their responsibilities, to the world that didn't understand this and probably never would. But for now, in this quiet of the barn, they had found something worth protecting. They had found honesty. They had found connection. They had found, against all odds and expectations, each other. And that discovery, dangerous and impossible and absolutely true as it was, would change everything that came after. The fear remained. How could it not? The fear of what others would say, of what this would mean for the farmer's reputation, for the ranch hand's future, for the farm that was more than just property. It was legacy and identity and purpose. But along with the fear, there was something stronger now. There was hope. There was possibility. There was the unshakable certainty that what they had found here, in this stolen moment, was too precious to be sacrificed on the altar of conformity. Morning will bring questions, the farmer said finally, his voice low in the quiet of the barn. From ourselves. From the world. The ranch hand nodded against his chest. But for now, the farmer continued, in the silence of this barn, we've found something worth protecting. What have we found? The ranch hand asked, though he already knew the answer. The farmer smiled, held him closer. The truth, he replied simply. We found the truth about who we really are. And we discovered that we're better together than we ever were alone. And in that moment, surrounded by the smell of hay and earth, by the distant sounds of the farm continuing its eternal rhythm, by the rays of light dancing through the cracks in the walls, they allowed themselves to believe that maybe, just maybe, this truth was strong enough to face whatever came next. The first light of morning came through the barn cracks like an alarm none of us wanted to hear. I still felt the warmth of his body next to mine, the smell of skin mixed with hay and old wood. But reality was already knocking at the door. We had to return to the normal world, to the world where this thing that happened between us couldn't exist. Raphael got up first, putting on his shirt slowly, without looking at me. I watched his every movement, wanting to engrave it all in my memory, because I didn't know when we'd have another moment like this. Would we even have one? We need to go, he said quietly. People will start arriving soon. I agreed, but neither of us really moved. We stayed there, frozen, as if leaving that barn meant leaving behind everything that had just happened. And in a way, it did. When we finally left, each of us went a different direction. I went back to the house. He headed straight to the corrals, as if nothing had changed, as if the previous night had been just a dream. But everything had changed. The first hours of the day were strange. I tried to act normal, greet everyone, make coffee, organize the house, but my eyes searched for Raphael constantly. I saw him from afar, working with the other ranch hands, and my heart raced just from looking. It was pathetic. It was beautiful. It was dangerous. When our eyes met for the first time that morning, it was like an electric current. He was near the feeding troughs, helping distribute feed. I was passing by with a basket of clothes to hang on the line. Our eyes met for 2 seconds, maybe 3. But it was enough. I saw everything there. The desire, the fear, the complicity. And he saw the same in me. I smiled discreetly. He looked away quickly, but I noticed the corner of his mouth rising before he turned his face. This was how it was going to be now. Stolen glances, contained smiles, a secret language that only the two of us understood. During the morning, I invented excuses to pass near him. I brought fresh water to the ranch hands. I went to check if the horses needed anything. I passed by the shed where he was fixing a fence. Each time the same thing. A quick look, a hidden smile, sometimes not even that. Just each other's presence, charged with everything we couldn't say. But there was one moment that almost made me lose control. I was getting tools in the workshop when Raphael came in. There was no one around. He closed the door behind him, and for a second, I thought he was going to kiss me. My whole body prepared for it. But he just passed by me, brushing his shoulder against mine, and when he grabbed the pliers on the workbench, his hand found mine. It was quick, half a second. He squeezed my fingers hard, looked into my eyes and whispered, "See you tonight." And he left. I stood there, holding a wrench, trembling, because that small touch, that disguised handshake, carried more weight than any conversation. It was our new reality. Stolen touches, coded words. "See you tonight" meant the barn. It meant the two of us, away from watching eyes. It meant everything we couldn't have during the day. And so the days began to follow a pattern. Early morning, each in our role. Me, taking care of the house, making food, organizing. Him, working hard with the cattle, fixing fences, dealing with the animals. During the day, we were two people who barely knew each other. But one look was enough for us to remember everything. At night, after everyone was asleep, we met in the barn. There, we were our true selves. No masks. No fear of someone seeing. The conversations in that space became deeper than I imagined possible. Sitting in the hay, sometimes lying next to each other looking at the roof, we shared things we had never told anyone. One night, Raphael told me about the first guy he liked. "I was 17, he began, his voice low, almost ashamed. "I was working on a farm near Goiânia. There was a guy there, older than me, about 25. He was different. Kind. He paid attention to me in a way no one ever had. I listened in silence, my hand intertwined with his. We never did anything," he continued. "But I felt it. I knew what I felt for him wasn't just admiration. It was attraction, and that terrified me. I left that farm without even saying goodbye. I ran away." "And now?" I asked. "Are you still afraid?" He took a while to answer. "I am," he admitted. "But the fear is different now. Before I was afraid of myself. Now I'm afraid of losing you." That destroyed and rebuilt me at the same time. I told him about my family, about how my father would never accept it if he knew, about how I had spent my whole life trying to be the perfect son, the man of the house, and how all of that seemed like a lie now. "Do you think we'll be able to live like this?" I asked one night. "Hidden?" Raphael was quiet for a long time. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I know I don't want to stop seeing you." And we didn't stop. The days turned into weeks. Our rhythm was established. Work during the day, secret meetings at night. We learned to be careful, not to look at each other too long when people were around, not to smile when someone made a joke about women or dating, to be just two workers on a farm. But inside, I was alive in a way I'd never been, until we were almost discovered. It was on a Tuesday afternoon. A cattle buyer had come to visit the property. My father was showing him the animals, and I was tagging along. Raphael was helping separate the livestock in the corral. At some point, I stepped away to get some papers from the office. When I was coming back, I saw Raphael leaving the main house. He'd gone to get water. Our paths crossed in a narrow corridor between two sheds, out of everyone's sight. We looked at each other, and it was automatic. Without thinking, I moved closer. He pulled me near the wall. Our bodies pressed together. He was sweaty from work. I could feel his heart beating against my chest. We were seconds away from kissing. That's when we heard the voice. "Have you seen where Lucas went?" It was my father, calling for the buyer. They were close. Very close. Raphael pushed me back on reflex. I took 2 quick steps, turning the opposite way. My heart was racing. I could barely breathe. My father appeared around the corner of the shed seconds later. "Ah, there you are," he said without any suspicion. Where are the papers? I showed him the documents, trying to control my trembling hand. Raphael had vanished. My father didn't even notice he'd been there. But I realized how close we'd come to disaster. That night, when we met in the barn, the mood was different. Tense. "We almost got caught," I said as soon as he came in. "I know." "Raphael, that was too close. If my father had shown up 2 seconds earlier." "I know," he repeated, his voice harder now. "We need to be more careful." We fell silent, the weight of reality crushing the moment. "Can we live like this?" I asked, for the second time in weeks. But this time the question was different, more real, more urgent. Hidden forever? Raphael ran his hand over his face, tired. "I don't know. But what do you want me to do? For us to walk around holding hands? You know what will happen." "I know," I admitted. "But I also know I can't stand pretending you're just another ranch hand, that this between us doesn't exist." He looked at me with an intensity that hurt. "Do you want me to leave? Is that it?" "No!" The word came out too fast, too desperate. "No, I don't know how we do this." "Nobody knows," Raphael said, "because nobody lives what we're living." In the following days, the tension continued. We stayed more distant during the day, barely looked at each other. It seemed safer that way. But at night, when we were alone, the anguish returned. "I'm thinking about leaving." Raphael dropped one of those nights. My stomach sank. "What?" "Not you," he hurried to clarify. "The farm. We could go somewhere else, where nobody knows us, where we don't have to hide." I wanted to say yes. I wanted to take his hand and leave right then and there. But reality was more complicated. "What about my family? My father? The farm?" "What about our life?" he countered. "Are you going to stay here forever, living a lie?" "It's not that simple, Raphael." "I know it's not simple." He raised his voice, frustrated. "But continuing like this isn't either. We're living on crumbs, hidden meetings, fear of being seen. This isn't living." He was right, but I couldn't just leave everything behind. "I need time," I said. "How much time?" "I don't know." Raphael took a deep breath, controlling his anger. "Okay. But I won't be able to stay here forever, Lucas. I can't stand pretending you mean nothing to me anymore." That night, we didn't sleep together. He left earlier. I stayed in the barn alone, trying to figure out what to do. In the following days, the distance between us grew. It wasn't just during work, it was all the time. Even in our nighttime meetings, which became rarer, there was an invisible wall. I felt like I was losing him, and that terrified me more than any discovery. It was on a Saturday afternoon that everything reached its limit. I was in the pasture, checking the fences, when I saw Raphael approaching. He was walking slowly, hands in his pockets, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said when he got close. My heart sank. "About what?" "About us. About what we're going to do." "Raphael, I already told you I need time." "And I gave you time," he interrupted me. "But I can't keep waiting while you decide if I'm worth it or not." "That's not it," I protested. "You know that's not it." "Then what is it?" he challenged. "Because from where I'm standing it seems like you're ashamed of me, that you prefer your safe little life here over risking anything for us. That hurt more than any punch." "I'm not ashamed of you." "Then prove it." "How?" "Come with me. We leave here. Start over somewhere else." I looked around, at the pastures, at the house in the distance, at everything I'd known since I was born. And then I looked at Raphael, at the man who had changed my entire life in just a few weeks. "I can't just abandon everything." He shook his head, disappointed. "Then I guess we don't want the same things." "Raphael, wait," No, Lucas. I'm tired of waiting. I love you, and I know you feel the same. But love isn't just about feeling. It's about choosing, and you're not choosing me. I was speechless, because he was right. I was afraid to choose, afraid of losing my family, afraid of judgment, afraid of everything. I'm leaving at the end of the month, Raphael said, his voice softer now but determined. If you change your mind by then, let me know. But if you don't, I understand. He started to walk away. Raphael! He stopped, but didn't turn around. Don't leave me, I said, my voice breaking. Please. He turned his face, and I saw his eyes were glistening. Then come with me. He waited. 1 second, 2, 5. I didn't answer. Raphael nodded, as if he'd expected that, and kept walking. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the pasture, watching him walk away. And for the first time since it all began, I understood the brutal truth of that situation. The choice wasn't about the farm, the work, or the fear of judgment. It was about choosing a real life or a safe life. It was about having the courage to be who I really was, or keep pretending forever. And I didn't know if I had that courage. That night, lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered if it was possible to love someone and still not be strong enough to be with them. If it was possible to feel everything I felt and still let him go. And the answer scared me, because maybe it was possible. Maybe people did it all the time. Chose safety over love. Chose fear over courage. But did I want to be that kind of person? I had until the end of the month to decide. 4 weeks. 28 days. And every second of that time would torture me. Then you finally find courage. That courage that was hidden beneath layers of fear, shame, expectations that were never yours. You walk to the barn. It's nighttime, but moonlight seeps through the cracks in the old wood, creating silver lines on the dirt floor. And he's there, sitting on a wooden bench, his head in his hands. You stop at the entrance, your heart pounding like it's about to burst out of your chest. And for the first time in days, you know exactly what you need to say. I'm not leaving. He lifts his head. His eyes, even in the dim light, shine with something between hope and disbelief. What? You take another step, then another, until you're there, in front of him, so close you can feel the warmth of his body without even touching. I'm not leaving, not without you. He stands up. His breathing is uneven, and you realize he's trembling, not from cold, from contained emotion. You can't stay because of me. That's not fair to you. Fair? You laugh, but it's a joyless laugh. None of this is fair. But I'm not staying just because of you. I'm staying for me. Because for the first time in my life, I know who I am. And I discovered that here, with you. He closes his eyes. You see a tear run down his face, and without thinking, you wipe it away with your thumb. The touch is electric, familiar, necessary. So we both stay. It's not a question. It's a promise. We both stay. And there, in that barn that witnessed so many stolen moments, so many hidden kisses, so many confessions whispered in the dark, you make a choice. The hardest and simplest choice of all. Choosing truth. In the days that follow, something changes. Small, almost imperceptible to those who don't know. But for you, it's seismic. At lunch, you sit together. Not hidden in the barn, not waiting for everyone to leave. There, at the big kitchen table with the other workers. You serve his plate. He passes you the salt. Simple gestures. Every day. But they mean everything. Some people look, of course they look. There are whispers. There always are. But you're no longer performing for an invisible audience. You're just living. One afternoon, while fixing the fence in the south pasture, you work side by side. The sun is high, sweat runs down your backs, your hands get dirty with earth, and suddenly, without thinking much, he puts his hand on your shoulder. You're doing it wrong. You look at him, eyebrow raised. Oh, I'm doing it wrong? He smiles. That smile you love, that lights up his entire face. Let me show you. And he shows you, his hands guiding yours. And you realize this is no longer forbidden. This is just life, work, connection, love. That night, sitting on the porch of the main house after everyone has gone to sleep, you look at the starry sky. The silence between you isn't uncomfortable. It's full, complete. Do you regret it? He asks quietly. You don't need to think. No, not for a second. Even knowing it'll be hard, that people will talk, that? You interrupt, turning to look directly into his eyes. I was hiding before you, hiding from myself. Now I know who I am, and that's worth any difficulty. He takes your hand, fingers intertwined like they have so many times, but now without the weight of secrecy. Me too. Before you, I just existed. Now I live. You rest your head on his shoulder, and there, under the stars, with the sound of crickets and wind in the trees, you make plans. Small plans. Big plans. Improvements to the farm. Maybe one day having a piece of land of your own. Dreams that once seemed impossible, but now, together, seem within reach. That barn, you say suddenly. That place where it all began. It was a place of fear, of shame. And now? You smile. This is where I became myself, where I discovered that vulnerability isn't weakness, that hiding is what's weak, that loving you made me stronger, not weaker. He squeezes your hand. You redefined what it means to be a man for me. Before I thought strength was not feeling, not needing, not surrendering. Now I know that strength is having the courage to feel everything, to need, to surrender completely. You stay there until late, talking, dreaming, planning, and when you finally get up to go to sleep, there's a new silent agreement between you. No more hiding. The next day, something different happens. You're working in the barn, fixing some tools, when you notice the door is open. Not ajar. Open. Completely open. Sunlight streaming in strong, illuminating every corner that used to stay in shadows. You look at him. He looks at you. And you smile. Because you understand the symbol. The locked door has become an open heart. The space of shame has transformed into a space of liberation. Later that day, you're organizing the feed sacks when your hands touch reaching for the same bag. You don't pull your hand away. Neither does he. And there, with daylight coming through the open door, he leans in and kisses you. It's not a rushed kiss, stolen in the shadows. It's slow, deliberate, free. When you pull apart, you notice one of the younger workers is walking by outside. He looks. You look back, and he simply keeps walking. No shouting, no drama, just tacit acceptance, or maybe indifference. And you discover it doesn't matter, because you're no longer living for anyone's approval. In the following weeks, routine establishes itself. But it's a transformed routine. You work together, eat together, laugh together. And yes, there are still challenges, still stares, still whispered comments you pretend not to hear. But the difference is that now you have each other, openly and completely, and that certainty is armor against any judgment. One night, lying in the room you now officially share, you ask, "Do you think we always knew? That we were always like this, but we were just dormant?" He thinks for a moment. "I think we were like seeds under the earth. We had the potential, but we needed the right conditions to sprout, and we became those conditions for each other. You turn on your side, looking at his face in the darkness. I love you. It's the first time you've said those words out loud, and they come out with an ease that surprises you, as if they were always there, waiting for permission to exist. I love you too. Since that first day in the barn, when you tripped on that rope and laughed instead of cursing, that's when I knew you were different, that you were special. You kiss, slow, deep, unhurried, because now you have all the time in the world, and as you fall asleep, intertwined, you think of all the stories of hidden love that were never told, of all the hearts that beat in the dark, in secret, afraid, and you feel a deep gratitude for having had the courage to choose the light. Weeks later, you're in the barn again, but this time, there's no tension, no fear of being discovered. You're just working, side by side, in comfortable silence. You're organizing the tools when your hand brushes against his. It's a brief touch, accidental. But you smile, because even accidents are now allowed, are celebrated. Remember when this was forbidden? You ask, without looking at him. This was never forbidden. We're the ones who forbade ourselves. You stop, look at him, and realize the profound truth in those words. You're right. The prison was always here. You touch your own chest. Not out there. He comes closer, takes your face in his hands. And now? You smile. Now I'm free. He kisses you. There, in the daylight coming through the barn's open door. And you feel, deep in your bones, the truth of it. You're free, not because the world changed, but because you changed. Because you chose authenticity over fear, chose love over approval, chose truth over performance. And that choice, that single courageous choice, transformed everything. Later, as you walk back to the main house, shoulders touching casually, you think about the future. It's still uncertain. There are still challenges ahead. Maybe there always will be. But you're no longer alone, no longer hidden. And that makes all the difference. How about we start that garden project next week? He suggests. The garden? You smile. You really think I know anything about planting? No. But we'll learn. Together. Together. That word that once seemed impossible is now the most natural thing in the world. Together. You repeat, tasting the word. Yes. Together. That night, sitting on the porch, you look at the barn in the distance. The door is still open, and you realize it's going to stay open, because you no longer need hiding places. You know what I realized. You say, what? That love isn't something you hide in the shadows. Love is something that grows in the light, and the more light you give it, the stronger it gets. He squeezes your hand. You're becoming a poet. You laugh, and it's a light laugh, genuine, full of future. Because that's the final truth you've discovered. That authentic love, true love, cannot exist in secret. It needs air, light, space to grow. And you, finally, gave that space to love and to yourselves. Your story is not about two men who fell in love on a farm. It's about two people who found the courage to be who they truly are, who chose authenticity even when the world told them to hide, who transformed a space of shame into a temple of liberation. And that story, that choice, that courage, it exists in all of us. We all have our barns, places where we hide parts of ourselves that we think the world won't accept. Loves we don't dare to name. Truths we don't dare to live. But here's the secret they discovered. Safe spaces aren't physical places. They're choices. The choice to be authentic. the choice to love truly, the choice to live in the light, not in the shadows. And that choice, it's always available. It always has been. So here's the question. What are you hiding? What part of you is locked in the dark barn, waiting for permission to see the light? Because the truth is, you don't need permission. You never did. You only need courage. The same courage they found. The courage to open the door, to let the light in, to choose authenticity no matter the cost. Every story of hidden love is a story of courage. Courage to feel, courage to want, courage to be. And in the end, perhaps that's the only question that matters. What will you choose? The performance or the truth? Fear or love? Shadow or light? They chose the light, and in that light, they discovered not only each other, but themselves. Now it's your turn. The barn door is open. The light is coming in. What will you do?